No, but how's the takeover going? There's
Also,
always that transition period.
very complicated for multiple reasons. I think the first one being we closed later than the first of the month due to the issues that came up, but rent was still my responsibility to collect on the first.
That's the worst. Little tip, if you're closing a place, especially large or more units, try to close it just after the first of the month, because if you do, it's the current owner's obligation to collect those rents due on the first and then transfer them to you on closing. So even if someone is late or delinquent or what have you, on the statement of adjustments on the closing, the existing seller is responsible for all of those rents. And if it's on the third or fourth day, it'll just be prorated for 27 days a month or what have you. But that is way better than, say, if you close on like the 26th of a month, and then 5 days later you're trying to make arrangements with a bunch of tenants to collect. In this case, they made you collect the rents for some reason, probably because of the delayed closing and stuff.
It was a bit of I'm not dealing with collecting rents at this point. I've already told the tenants that the buildings were closing. You delayed the closing due to issues that were kind of out of my control, but we delayed the closing.
Yep.
So he's like, look, you've got to deal with getting the rents. I'm not picking them up. You deal with them. So now we're trying to go back and get those rents, also where it's late into the month. It can be tough sometimes. The tenants might not necessarily have the cash sitting around, and there's another payment coming up in 5 days. So
that's the worst. Yeah,
and the leases are a bit of a mess. Like the person who owned them before, they're good tenants, but the leases are, some of them have been there 5+ years. They don't have leases. Security deposits didn't all get transferred. So we're going through that fund right now.
We're here end of the month, and you're talking about collecting rents for the first of the month still?
Oh, yeah.
They're outstanding? Because then, there's another
month
coming up.
They owe double rent, which is, I'm expecting to see some bounces on the withdrawals.
Yeah.
So anyways, we're trying to get it sorted out as quickly as possible, but it's tough, even with contact info and trying to introduce all the tenants, and the tenants are all confused. And
yeah. How often do you find that closings get delayed on stuff like this?
Surprisingly more often than people think.
I find they always get delayed.
I would say I was gonna say always, honestly. Like it just seems like on a commercial deal, it's never as simple as just doing some stuff. First of all, lawyers have more work to do.
Yeah,
on both ends, they're trying to figure out their adjustment sheets and all this crap. Yep. So there's always a screw up. Like the seller's lawyer will send over an adjustment sheet, and the buyer's lawyer will find a mix up. Well, they can't just be like, all right, just add $300 on.
That rent roll doesn't reflect what we've got in the leases, which doesn't reflect the rent roll that you sent over earlier. That's been increased. We need something signed about that, and so on and so forth.
Broker conditions on the money. There's always a little asterisk of like, oh, we got it, but the insurance doesn't show the right payee address by like a digit on the postal code because this bank's just moved their office in Toronto 3 floors higher, and you're like,
yeah.
Does it really even friggin' matter? Like, it's got their name on there. It's got everything else in there. But there's so many random little things like that I find always impact it. There's also the aspect of a lot of people in this game are like refinancing to buy another one. And I've seen that where they make the dates like the same, or they're using the same bank for the refi and the buy. So the bank's trying to process through the refi and the buy, and the whole works in like that week. And it's just like they also hire they elect their own lawyer. So you're dealing with the bank's lawyer, your lawyer, and the seller's lawyer, and they're all just pointing fingers at each other, and you're like, what do I do?
It's funny. That's kind of what I'm going through right now, because I'm doing the refis that I think I mentioned in a previous episode to purchase. Well, for part of the reason is purchasing this side property, but then also to gear up for the development. But it's funny. Igor, he was on our show. You guys have probably, hopefully you've watched that one. It's a great episode with Igor, who's a mortgage broker. But then he connects me with a bank, and God love him that this bank, it doesn't matter when I say. Sometimes I don't even send them the conditions. They're like, we're going to need a 2-week extension. So I didn't even tell you what day it was due. Like, whatever it is, we're going to need a 2-week extension. I could be like, it's 6 months from now. Like, better make it 6 months and 2 weeks. Yeah. Like, if it's 4 weeks from now, we're going to need 6 weeks. It always seems to get delayed. So already, I'm supposed to close on that property November 14th.
Yeah.
And like a week ago, so October 18th, they were like, we're going to need a little longer than that closing. I'm like, how do you know already? You haven't even tried yet. So I've got to have this preemptive conversation with the seller, like, hey, we're all going to be good here. And it's kind of embarrassing, but also I knew it was a tight turnaround. And
I think most sellers are fairly understanding of it, because they recognize that, like, with these properties, It's not like a house. Like a house, you might be able to flip it around and find someone that's got cash. They'll just buy the thing and close in 2 weeks. Like that's totally possible. But you're not going to find someone that's just game to, with no knowledge of anything, turn around and close on 20 units for $2 million. Like that's just not. They need to get financing in place. There's all these other issues with enviros and inspections and this and that. So a lot of times they're kind of like, all right, if I go back to market, I'm probably not going to get my money for an extra 3 months or 4 months. And there's potential of a bunch of other issues and a ton of other risks. So I really want to back out of this deal because I'm a little cranky that we'd extend by a few weeks. And they've probably been on the other end where they've been buying and they've had to extend.
That's exactly it. I mean, anyone who's selling a multi-unit, that means they bought a multi-unit at some point, and they get the closing delays that come up. And it gets across the finish line. I mean, I know if the financing is in place, but the funds are coming simultaneous or as part of a refinance on some other stuff. So there's a lot of moving parts. I'll likely get it done, unfortunately, the end of the month, which is exactly what we just talked about. And so the bank first came back like, we'll get it done for November 30th. And I'm like, that's the worst possible day. I'd rather you said...
They're probably closing like 5 houses that day too.
Yeah, well, I would have said I would rather it be December 5th than November 30th, but that's not a good look. So like, can you please just get it November 25th or something like that so that I have a few days to go meet the tenants, and none of them are going to do e-transfer. I guarantee it. It's all going to be cash or checks, and it's going to be a whole thing of like, okay, so you got to do an e-transfer. You don't have an account, and like it's going to be a hot mess. But
when I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.